It can only be attributable to human error.
You're entering paranormal.
He meddled in things that should be so He meddled in things. He meddled in
Where will we go next? It's a phantom from another time.
No one, Mr. Mulder.
That's it, man. Game over, man. Game over.
That is one big pile of shit.
Hello, everyone. I'm Alex Daikaiju,
I'm Jasmine Maywith.
I'm Eli Watson.
and we are
Cryptid Campfire.
Happy Halloween!
Oh.
Yeah. It's Halloween time.
It's our spooky episode. We actually do not have one subject for today. We're kind of going to be just, having some conversations about things we think are spooky.
We're going to be talking about our favorite monsters
Monsters. Oh yeah.
and mysteries.
Mysteries.
So
And
perhaps
Eli Watson.
mysteries and monsters? perhaps?
Maybe. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Did you have anything you wanted to start off with?
Well, we have a vlog out.
Oh,
If you guys haven't seen that,
Oh,
we
yeah.
dropped it.
The long lost vlog.
2 years in the making.
Yeah. We went to Halloween Horror Nights 2 years ago, right? 2 years ago.
Yeah.
2021.
Mhm.
What's funny is, okay, so yeah, it was back in 2021. We were still recording the podcast like every single week.
Mm-hmm.
We actually talk about that in one of our episodes, and I wish I knew which one it was.
Talking about what?
The vlog, and because you ask me on air, you say, "When's that vlog coming out?" And I say,
Oh.
"Oh, probably after this episode."
And then 2 years later.
I wasn't lying. It was after that episode.
Well, we went in September, so it's probably one of our September episodes that we talked about it.
It could, yeah, probably.
I mean, it'd be a trip to go back and listen to where we were 2 years ago
Well,
on the podcast.
I did listen to our 2020 Zombies episode
Yeah.
in preparation for this, because Zombies was kind of the starting point for what this episode was going to be. So I was like, well, let me re-listen to our old one. And it's funny because Alex, we're in the episode, we're talking about zombies and cordyceps and the zombie ants, which then leads Alex to talking about The Last of Us, which in 2020 I had no idea what it was. I literally go, is that a game on the episode?
way.
I do. And so it's just funny because, fast forward 3 years, I've watched the TV series The Last of Us, mainly because of Pedro Pascal being the lead in it. But it's just funny to be like, dang, I had no idea what this was. And then they've got The Last of Us at Horror Nights this year.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Jasmine and I went to Halloween Horror Nights a week ago? A little over
Something
a week
like
ago.
that, yeah.
And that was fun.
What mazes did they have?
The Exorcist, Stranger Things 4, The Last of Us,
Chucky,
Chucky,
Oh.
Universal Monsters.
Universal Monsters Unmasked, which was Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and the Invisible Man showed up for like a brief moment.
Because he had to.
Yeah. What I thought it was kind of cool though, because they had a dude in an all black suit with like the white stuff around him and under a black light. So the only thing you see is him like with the bandages or whatever.
Oh.
So he does look invisible. It's kind of cool.
That's dope.
The other three they had were Evil Dead Rise,
Oh.
Holidays in Hell,
That was a good one.
and then our favorite, I forget what the official title was, but it was a Latin Monsters.
It was called
Maze.
Monsters of Latin America. Monstruos. Wow, I need to practice. I was speaking Spanish this morning just fine.
Well, in the time that you've come here, we've had some weird occurrences. Just
Yeah, it's a
randomly.
weird day, guys.
It's a
Not to get
strange
into
day.
it, but some weird stuff's been happening.
Weird and strange, outside society, just like us.
Yeah.
Hey, but I just want to say, we had a successful night at Horror Nights. We hit every maze, and we were able to do Harry Potter, Jurassic World, Flight of the Hippogriff, and we also did the Terror Tram.
Yeah, we
which-
did.
That was kind of weird this year, but it was like bug themed.
Oh, gross.
Yeah.
But it was cool. Very successful night.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's cool that, like, this is a little side note, but it's cool that the Universal Monsters are getting more love at Horror Nights.
Yeah.
Because 2 years ago when we went, they had the Bride of Frankenstein maze.
Yeah.
It was so good. It was definitely the best one that year.
That was like, yeah, like I always think back of like, oh man, remember that like Bride of Frankenstein one where she like resurrects the monster?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wish I would have filmed that one better, because that one is in the vlog. But I remember it had a really cool storyline, and from what I could put together is she survives the end of the Bride of Frankenstein movie, and then tries to revive the monster, but in the meantime she's fighting off vampires.
Yeah.
And she becomes a vampire slayer, and I'm like, man, that's such a cool idea.
Yeah.
I watched that movie 3 times.
Seriously, no kidding.
But all that to say, the vlog is out. It's on our YouTube channel. So go watch it. It's a fun time.
Yeah. Well, you know what? May I go first then? Because I'll just spin off right from that. Because I was inspired by our trip to Universal Studios and the Horror Nights. Because the Monsters of Latin America, there was 3 of them, 2 of which I had never heard of, and one of them we've actually covered on the show, La Lechuza, which is the witch.
It was also the drink we had, which I didn't finish.
Sucked.
It was so sweet and heavy and sugary. There was so much going on in that drink.
Oh.
There was. So I wanted to briefly touch on each of those things.
Ooh, fun!
Very briefly.
Ooh.
Because, I mean, I honestly wish I had filmed that one.
Yeah.
Because that one was so cool.
It was also the first one that we went in that night, so...
Yeah. The line was super short, and just the animatronics and the makeup and everything, everything was awesome and creepy. And
honestly, it was probably, like... I mean, I don't know if this is true or not. It's just an assumption I'm making. It's probably underrated because it's not like a franchised maze that everybody is familiar with and knows about. It's kind of more like one of those random ones, but it was definitely very good. Surprisingly gory. More gory than I anticipated.
Really?
Yeah, it was wild. And you know what? I'll say this too. All the franchise ones, aside from maybe The Exorcist, kind of disappointed me.
Really?
I didn't think they were like that scary. But then again, like, the Monsters of Latin America was so scary, and we did that one first. Everything kind of
set the
failed
stage.
Yeah.
by comparison. Like,
I liked Evil Dead Rise a lot.
That one sounds dope.
we did that?
Yeah, it was the second one we did. It's right next to
That's
Latin
right.
America.
Oh, it was through the old Walking Dead one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That makes
That's
sense.
right. That was a good one. Okay. All right. So we're gonna go down the list. I don't know. But you can go listen to the whole episode about La Lechuza, but I just did a little bit of research on it.
Yeah.
And
that could be a nice refresher.
right. So La Lechuza, at least, is kind of like a half woman, half bird, half owl.
Oh, it's coming back to me. Okay.
And so I actually discovered that Lechuza is not specifically relegated to mean that entity. It also means just specifically a white owl. So you could say La Lechuza and just be talking about a white, like, snow owl that you see. Hedwig.
Oh, and the Angry Inch.
Yeah, there you go. So as the story goes, La Lechuza's got, like, a background to it. Because I always thought it was just, like, any witch that could shapeshift, but apparently there's a specific story that goes with it. And so as the story goes, La Lechuza was just an ordinary, older woman who lived on the outskirts of a village. And a boy went missing in that village. And they blamed her for being a witch and saying that she had killed him or whatever. And so they executed her. But before they did that, she made a deal with the devil to come back as a shape-shifting creature. And so she was executed, but now she's seen in the form of an owl. Sometimes an owl, but sometimes a large owl with the face of a human. So, or a woman with the face of an owl, which is kind of what they went for in the Horror Nights maze. Kind of creepy.
Yeah.
It's kind of shared as like a cautionary tale. And that's kind of like the region of that is like northern Mexico, southern Texas is really where that story's at. So, pretty cool.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so like there was all sorts of crazy stuff going on in that maze. Bodies with their heads bitten off.
Oh. And then you said, what, was it a human body with an owl head? With
Yeah.
what they kind of...
And they had a big one, huge animatronic one that was like really scary.
Oh, that sounds scary.
Yeah, it was. I don't know. It's like you never think about it. Just how big things can be scary.
Yeah.
Big things in a small space.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a big Chucky in the Chucky one too, which I didn't like.
That one was
Yucky.
actually scary. Yeah.
Made you uncomfortable.
Yeah. So then there was another one called El Silbón, is how you would say that. And I'm not sure which one that was supposed to be. Actually, well, basically he looks like a very tall, thin man with a hat.
Everything kind of blurs together when you go to Horror Nights, but is that the one where at the end, wasn't there a tall thing that came out?
I think
at
there
the
was.
end?
I think there was.
That might have been it.
There was also
Because
a
I feel
giant
like
face.
I feel like I was looking up at something that came down at me.
Oh, that sounds intense.
There was also a giant face that came out of the darkness.
Yeah.
Ooh.
It was like this, just like a big face that just came right out at you, and you're like, "What is going on?"
Like the most upsetting thing
You
to
know?
see.
Because you walk through like a bar, and there's like a spooky bartender, whatever, dead people around. Then you go through these curtains, and then as you go through the curtains, there's this giant animatronic face that rushes out at you, and you're like, "What's going on?"
Like creepypasta territory.
Yeah.
Basically. So El Silbón, also known as the Whistler, he is folklore of Venezuela, Colombia, places like that. And so apparently the story behind him is that he was a child and his parents spoiled him. He was a brat in life, and so he told his father to go hunt him a deer because that was his favorite food, but his father couldn't get one. So the little boy was angry, so he killed his father, cut out his dad's heart and liver, gave it to his mom to cook, like saying it was the deer's, and the mom figured it out that it was not a deer, and so she got mad and asked her father, so the boy's grandfather, to tie him to a post and whip him until his back was destroyed.
Whoa.
Washed out his back with alcohol, chili powder, and lemon juice. Then they put his father's remains in a bag and put it on the boy's back and cursed him to carry his father's bones around for eternity, and then sent him out in the woods, and his grandfather unleashed his hunting dogs on him.
Good
It's
lord.
a crazy story.
No wonder this guy was in the maze. That's pretty gory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's at first I was like, oh, this is, being hangry taken too far. If he wanted a deer, dad couldn't do it, so he killed his dad. But then the family's response to such things sounds like this family's already intense to begin
I
with.
know. But anyways, what's interesting is if you hear the Whistler from up close, you're actually not in any danger because that means it's far away. But if you hear it from at a distance, it means that it's actually close by and you are in danger. And it's not necessarily that he's going to come and get you and kill you, but it's more like a forewarning that you're going to die soon.
Oh.
And the only thing that can save you at that point is a dog barking, because that's the only thing
It, like,
else
scares them off.
There's also another aspect of it too, where he'll show up at your house and take his pack off and start counting the bones of his father, and he'll do that at like midnight. And basically what will happen is if you hear it, or if someone in the house hears the bones being counted and you like go out to check on it, he'll disappear and you'll be safe. But if you don't hear it, no one in the household hears it, someone in your house will die before the morning.
Oh, man.
That's messed up.
Yeah.
So if you're like, oh, it's like 2 in the morning, you just hear 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I better go check on that. It could be someone counting his dad's bones.
Yeah, I know.
Hey, stop counting those bones on my yard. Oh, I miscount. I gotta start again. 1, 2, 3.
So that brings us to the final one and the most difficult one to pronounce, because I don't think this is a Spanish word. I think this comes from the people who were before, like the Mayans or the Aztecs or something, because they have some funky words. But this is pronounced, as best as I can say, Tuluhuahuelpuchi, which is a wild one. But they're witches, basically. But they're different from regular witches in the sense that they're born as this way. But they're indistinguishable from normal children. And in fact, growing up through childhood, they're pretty much the same as children until puberty happens, and then they'll start developing shape-shifting abilities and the insatiable desire to drink blood.
What?
Yeah, and so they're mostly females, but they can be males. But the females are the more savage of the two, is what I hear. They will drink the blood of anybody, but they specifically prefer the blood of infants.
Jeez.
Dude, all these stories are messed up. And they experience hunger 1 to 4 times a month. So it's pretty scary. And so families will actually go to great lengths to hide this fact. If like someone in your family, like your daughter or your sister, ends up being one of these, they will go to great lengths to cover it up because people will like socially ostracize you. And I feel rightfully so, for raising one of these. And the other aspect too is if you try to kill one, the powers will transfer to you.
Oh no!
So you'll kill it, but you'll get its powers.
You'll become the very thing you hunted.
Exactly. And so they can transform into almost anything, but they specifically like to turn into turkeys.
Gobble gobble.
And
Holidays in hell.
Dude, the other thing is, whatever form they shift into, is they're limited by that form's abilities. So if they turn into a dog, they can't do like magical dog stuff. They're just a dog. With one exception, is that they can make turkeys fly. I don't know.
Now they've gone too far.
It's so weird.
I love like myths and legends from other parts of the world just because there'll be something of like, oh, it checks the box of, there's a bloodlust, there's like families keeping a secret, there's all these great elements, and then it'll be like, oh, and then they'll turn into the greatest killer on earth, the turkey.
Yeah, it's just like...
But a turkey that can fly, the mind goes mad at the thought of it.
Now that is scary.
The creatures of the night. What sounds they make. Gobble, 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 gobble.
Well, here's my final few points is, so apparently they'll transform into a mist, creep under your doors, get into your house, then transform into a turkey, and make noises that will hypnotize you. And one of two things will happen. Either you go into a deep sleep so that they can drink your blood, or they'll make you do whatever they want you to do. And there was like... I didn't want to get super into like a trigger warning because there's some messed up stuff that they'll make you do.
Some evil turkey.
Some really evil stuff. But what's scary about all of it is there were actual executions of suspected Tuluwarelpuchis. And the last recorded one was in 1973.
Whoa.
So not that long ago.
50 years ago.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Pretty wild.
Yeah.
That's wild. The whole premise, it sounds like it could be a good kind of like A24 coming of age horror story of where you follow like a teen girl who's like maybe 13, 14. She does school, she's got her friend, she does a babysitting gig on the weekends for some extra money, but then, she hits her birthday and then she's babysitting, watching the kids, and she's hungry. She's like real hungry for this baby.
Dude, whoa.
And that's when the bloodlust started.
Yeah. Well, if you're all finished with those, I could probably go next because I actually also have a topic to talk about that is related to Universal and some of the Horror Nights mazes that we went through. I want to talk about Frankenstein's monster.
Oh,
Yeah.
sick. Okay.
But first, I want to answer the question that was posed to me by Eli in our last episode when you asked about how many documents and how many pages of notes I have.
Yes, I remember, yeah.
I went through and looked it up, and roughly I have about 21 notes documents. I say roughly because I only counted the ones that showed up in the search results when I looked for the words Cryptid Campfire in the text, because I don't always properly title my documents, so there might be a few others floating around on my Google Drive that I didn't include in these numbers.
Okay.
But 21 notes documents comes out to about 778 pages of notes.
I'm telling you, that's like, this is Jasmine's manifesto that, like, the day she goes missing, that's going to be emailed to, like, every major publication.
Yeah, I know. I will say, I probably have somewhere in the realm because I handwrite all my notes. This is my 4th one so far. And for one tome, one of our really long tomes.
Was it the road trip one? Because that's the longest one that I have.
Maybe. But with that other tome, I would probably be at 5. And so each of these journals is about 200 pages. Actually, I'll let you know right now. It is 238 pages. So we'll just say 200 just to keep it safe. What is that? Almost 1,000 handwritten pages.
But the mythical, long lost, the books of Eli Watson.
Yeah.
They're not long lost. They're all on my bookshelf.
My longest document was from our road trip tome, and that alone was 121 pages.
Wow.
That's one of my favorites. But yeah, so for today's episode, I was like, let me just talk about Frankenstein's monster, because I feel like everybody has this general knowledge of Frankenstein's monster, but doesn't actually know anything about it, and I would be one of those people prior to today. I'm like, yeah, Frankenstein's monster.
Have you read the book?
No, I haven't, but I did.
Have you seen the movie?
Nope.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Whoa. So you really just have, like, the most general sense of them?
Yeah, so that's why I wanted to kind of find out more, and if you've noticed, I've been using the terminology Frankenstein's monster, not Frankenstein, because Frankenstein is the scientist, the doctor, who makes the creature, not the actual creature. The creature doesn't have a name. It's just Frankenstein's monster.
Mary Shelley referred to him as Adam.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, the first man, yeah.
Interesting. Oh, yeah, because the original title of the book was
It's
something
called-
different.
It's Frankenstein, or the Modern Prometheus.
Yes.
Which, honestly, that's a sick title.
It
I
is.
was talking to my brother about that, and it's like, that's just...
That's, like, such a mic drop of a title.
Yeah.
By someone who was, like, 16 at the time when they wrote it.
She was like 18 or 19.
That's
Okay.
insane.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But yeah, so this is the story written by Mary Shelley. And in the story, there's this Dr. Frankenstein who cobbles together a man by stealing different body parts from graveyards and then bringing the body to life by shocking it with an electric current. Side note, have you read the book?
I have.
Have you read the book?
Yes.
Okay. Is lightning ever mentioned? Because I don't believe it is.
No. Do you want to know?
Well, I have the quote. So the quote that's in the book, the text says, "With an anxiety that almost amounted to agony, I collected the instruments of life around me that I might infuse a spark of being into the lifeless thing that lay at my feet." That's all it says. There
Yeah.
are no specifics about what is used. Heck, the word electricity, I don't believe, is even in there anywhere.
It's the word spark.
Yeah.
Yeah, because in the novel, it's told first person. I don't want to step on your toes, Jess.
No, don't. Please give me what you know.
The novel's first person mode of Victor Frankenstein relating how he got from where he is in the book to, starting off as a young man, becoming a scientist, dabbling in, some kind of dark art which gives life to the living dead. And he talked in the book, he's like, the method was so bad, the end results were so terrible, I'm not writing down what I did.
Ah.
He doesn't describe the process because he fears that someone else will replicate it.
Let me see.
A little pre-Lovecraft of don't tell it, it's too evil.
AKA, you don't have to fill in the details.
Yeah.
Leave it a little blank.
Yeah. But I do think it's interesting that even though the only thing that's mentioned is a spark, this idea has been created that electricity is used. And so I was like, let me do a little science lesson. And so I literally did some elementary school research on science of electricity to try and understand exactly how this might have happened. Did you guys know that throughout the 18th and 19th century, the science of electricity, which was sweeping through Europe and North America, was actually being called an entertainment for angels rather than men?
Really?
And there's a book about it. But would you guys like a little science lesson?
I'm
Let's
so
do it.
ready.
All right. So, children, all matter is made up of microscopic atoms. And inside that atom is a nucleus containing positive charged protons and neutrons with no charge, which is being orbited by negatively charged electrons. And atoms balance the positive charge of their protons with the negative charge of their electrons. But sometimes electrons break free and jump to other atoms. Electricity is the movement or flow of electrons from one atom to another. So when electricity moves from one place to another, this is called an electric current, which is what we say is what brought Frankenstein's monster to life. So, have you guys ever heard of the flying boy experiment?
No.
Not off the top of my head.
All right. Well, this was one of the experiments that proved the human body could conduct electricity. And this is where people started to wonder if electricity could reanimate the dead, like in real life. So there was this guy, Stephen Gray. He's been called the father of electricity. He was alive from 1666 to 1736 and was the first to demonstrate that electricity could be conducted and that what he called electric virtue could flow from a source and create a charge in other objects. He also discovered that this electric virtue could be transferred if an object was suspended, not just grounded or earthed. So in this flying boy experiment, which was published in the Philosophical Transactions of the Royal Society, he describes how a boy can be held up by silken cords, and then a static charge can be transferred to his feet by rubbing them with a glass rod or a globe, and then this charge could then be felt as a prickling sensation by another person in close proximity. You get shocked. And in a darkened room, you could see this charge transfer because there would be a visible spark. And that all sounds very simple. We experience that now throughout our daily lives sometimes, that static electricity, that shock, that little, light,
Little
whatever.
pop.
But back in the day, this was like crazy for people to see and experiment with. And there was actually a thing called electrical parties where people would literally just gather and like watch things like this happen, and they'd play with sparks and like watch things light up and just
Wow,
like
we gotta bring that back.
There was like back in the day, it used to just be parlor parties where
Yeah.
it's just whoever had a house. Hey, you want to come see a seance, electricity experiment, or we could just do a straight up dissection of a live corpse in the night.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get to that, but there are other iterations of the experiment where you can use a rotating sulfur ball as well to charge the boy's body, and then he can pull pieces of things like feathers or gold leaf onto his hands. Like, it floats up to his hand because it's attracted to the charge and whatever, so it looks like he's puppeteering the things.
That's
And
sick.
like,
It's a child of the devil.
it's like magic. So that's why it was so fascinating. But moving on and getting more to like the Frankenstein type stuff, 1771, Italian scientist Luigi Galvani was dissecting a frog near an electrical generator when he noticed the frog's leg muscle contracted when two different pieces of metal touched a frog's nerve and spinal cord at the same time. So he had this whole hypothesis that all living beings have what he called animal electricity, but really what was happening was the electricity was coming from the metal rods used to create a circuit, not the frog's tissue. However, his work, he's got a science named after him now, so it's galvanism, which is the medical use of electricity to stimulate nerves and muscles. So that's where that came from. But his nephew, Giovanni Aldini, wanted to reanimate humans instead of frogs, and he hoped to prove that electricity in the body did not end with death and could be used to revive the deceased. So this is where it gets controversial, because he convinced London officials to send him the corpse of a convicted murderer who'd been put to death. His name was George Forster, to test
Let's
the
bring the
hypothesis.
murderer back to life.
That's what I'm saying. So in 1803, he attached electrodes to Forster's deceased body, his head, his neck, his chest, his limbs, and up the booty.
You gotta.
And to those, he attached cells consisting of two oppositely charged metal plates immersed in tubes of acid. And for 8 hours, he messed with this guy's body with an audience. So this electric current was sent through the body, and in that time period, these are the things that happened. His eyes opened, his face grimaced, his fingers twitched, his back arched, his chest heaved up and down, and it started going faster and faster until suddenly everything was motionless again. Then he decided to open the sternum and apply the current directly to the heart, but it wouldn't beat. That was kind of the end of it there. So obviously he didn't actually bring anybody back to life. He was just making these lifeless limbs twitch. But it had freaked people out so much that they thought it could happen. They were like, "Oh my gosh, this is a possibility. Like this can really happen." And
It's the animal energy.
I
It's
know.
in all of us.
the animal electricity. So apparently, one guy was so freaked out that he died of shock later that night. But all of these experiments and discoveries are what most likely inspired Mary Shelley. In fact, she wrote in the preface of the 1831 edition of the book, galvanism had given token of such things, so perhaps a corpse could be reanimated. All that to say, Mary Shelley wrote this book. She wrote it when she was like 18 or 19 in the summer of 1816 because her friend, Lord George Gordon Byron, who was also another author, he was a heartthrob guy, poetry, things like that. He suggested a ghost story challenge amongst the friend group, and this is why she ended up writing this book. And then she published it anonymously in 1818 under the title The Modern Prometheus, which we had already discussed. And I was trying to find out a little bit more information. I don't know if you might have it, Alex, but the first time it was credited to Mary Shelley was in a French translation of 1821. But I don't know why she published it anonymously in the first place.
Oh, because back in the day, they didn't publish women's writings.
Oh. Well, I'm a terrible female.
No. Hey, if anything, Mary Shelley is like the feminist icon.
I know.
Of like, she was 18. They're like, hey, everyone. Lord
Yeah.
Byron got everyone together. He's like, oh, he had a club foot back in the day, too. He had a big club foot, and he's a poetry guy. He's like, oh, it's raining out there, it's storming. We should do a scary contest. Let's do scary stories. He came up and did one about like a ghost that was a handsome ghost that was sad and handsome, and no one appreciated him. You know, and then the other guy who stepped up, his name was Polly Dolly or Polyophilus. He was a writer's friend, and he's one of the guys who kind of started the trend of the modern vampire that we know of, where they're smart. Because before then, it was just stories of like ghouls and vampires that would rise from the dead and eat people and drink blood. And he came up with the idea of like a gentleman vampire who'd been alive for a few hundred years and was just forlorn and looking for some purpose in life now that he was undead. And they're like, oh, that's not bad. That's kind of cool, whatever. And then Mary Shelley steps up, 18-year-old girl. What if a man tried to create life from the living dead? And she just created science fiction on the spot. Modern science fiction as we know it. Had the coolest name ever. But then nobody would believe that she wrote it. They're like, a woman writing a book? Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Well,
that's pretty wild.
I heard it was debated that it wasn't actually written by her and that it was written by her husband.
Percy Shelley.
I believe that the initial publication wasn't anonymous, but it was under his name.
Oh, was it?
They used his name to get it published out there. And then they were like, oh, it's, but they put Percy tiny, so it was Shelley. So the name of like, oh, Shelley. Oh, let's see. Oh, Percy Shelley. That poetry guy.
On top of that, did you read that it was originally a short story? It was a short story, and then they, I think her husband said, you should make this like a full-length novel.
Oh, we love a supportive partner.
Yeah. You know what? And she loved him so much that when Percy Shelley died, she had his heart taken out and put in a little bag that she carried with her for the rest of her life.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Goodness.
That's metal. Goodness.
Yeah, she was like, I love this man so much. I love him.
Well, we all know the 1931 Universal Studios adaptation movie.
Which we're going to watch.
We are.
Oh,
Showing her this year.
you gotta watch Bride of Frankenstein right after, too.
That's what we're
That's
going
the
to do.
plan. Double feature. But did you know that the first Frankenstein movie was actually in 1910?
I did not.
Edison, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Thomas Edison?
Yeah, he had a publishing company, production company. He put out some of the first films.
I knew that, but I didn't know he made a Frankenstein.
Yeah, it's like a real short film. I think it's like maybe like 10 minutes long or so, if that. It's real short, but it's basically, you have your Frankenstein doctor guy who, he gets bones and he puts them in a big vat. He just drops them into a big like cauldron, and then out of the cauldron comes like this misshapen like Frankenstein guy, but he's got really long fingers, and his head's more like mushy, and he's like, he's almost like a Quasimodo.
Yeah.
And he like looks around and does like the classic like old timey like big eyes, and he like runs around, and I think he pushes him back into the cauldron at the end of the movie, and he like dissolves or something.
Interesting.
So then the whole idea of the electricity must come from that 1931. Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Universal is to thank for that imagery.
Love it.
Yeah.
I love those movies.
Can you guess how many other adaptations have been made?
75.
No.
At least like 50 or so, right?
Over 40.
Oh.
Yeah.
So it could be 75.
It could technically, yeah, it could be 75. 75 is over 40.
There's so many good Frankenstein movies out there too.
Is there?
Yeah, because, alright, so I'll do a quick little filmography, a little history of Frankenstein movies I recommend that I think are fun. So there's the original 1931 James Whale's Frankenstein, and then, was it 1933's Bride of Frankenstein?
35.
35, okay. But they're basically like one movie, broken into two. Those are classics. That's where you get the idea of electricity. You get Boris Karloff with the square head, the neck, and the bolts in the neck.
The iconic.
And then in the second movie, a little bit of a spoiler, he gets to enjoy the vices of man when he learns smoking and drinking. Smoke, good.
Yeah.
Wine, good. You're like, that Frankenstein speaking to me, man. So those are classics there. And then in the 50s, British company called Hammer Films put out their own version of Frankenstein Dracula movies, which starred Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee. Peter Cushing, we all know, is Grand Moff Tarkin from Star Wars, the handler of Darth Vader, and Christopher Lee is Count Dooku, the vampire lord in Star Wars.
Yeah.
But the original, I think it's like 1955, 57 maybe. It's in color. It's got Peter Cushing. It's called The Curse of Frankenstein. Peter Cushing plays Dr. Frankenstein. Christopher Lee is the monster.
No kidding.
It's so good because I'll give you just a brief hint. So in this movie, Peter Cushing is like an evil Dr. Frankenstein, to where he's like, I want to do whatever I can for science. I don't care what gets in my way. Someone comes up, Dr. Frankenstein, I think you're doing something bad. He's like, yeah, check this out, and gets a knife and stabs him. And he's like, no, you're part of the experiment. So he murders people to get the bodies.
No.
Brings the monster to life, played by Christopher Lee. The monster stands around, goes a little bit of a rampage, and then the townspeople say, that is enough, and they shoot the monster dead halfway through the movie. Peter Cushing isn't done. He's like, oh, that was test one. Test two, let me bring the monster back to life again. And it comes back even more deranged.
Dang.
It's so good.
Savage.
And that spawned like a little series of like Frankenstein movies where you have Peter Cushing playing a Dr. Frankenstein who travels across Germany, using different names and doing different experiments that have different results.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's cool.
They're really fun. Like, I really recommend them. And then there's all kinds of other Frankenstein movies throughout the 80s. There's this movie called Monster Squad, where it's basically a group of kids, like the Little Rascals, fighting the Universal monsters.
No way.
Yeah, where the monsters show up in a small town, these kids have to fight them and defend a town. And that they befriend the Frankenstein monster because he's misunderstood the whole time.
Of course.
And then the final Frankenstein movie I'd recommend that I think is really fun, and not a lot of people talk about it, it's Victor Frankenstein from like 2011.
Yeah, but Daniel Radcliffe.
Daniel Radcliffe and new Dr. X, or Professor X.
Name? James McAvoy.
McAvoy, yeah. Dude, go watch that Frankenstein movie.
It's good.
It's so fun because it's Frankenstein before he makes the monster, and he practices with other animal forms to make like little chimeras.
That's interesting because the next thing that I have a little list. So for this episode, I referenced Carlin Betcha's book. I don't know if you remember her.
A to Z Monsters.
Yeah, it was Monstrous, the lore, gore, and science behind your favorite monsters. And she's got a page in there talking about like some real life Frankenstein animals. So I have a little list of those if you're interested to hear.
I gotta hear.
So have you ever heard of silk goats?
No.
So the silk weaving gene from spiders has been put into the milk producing DNA in goats, which produce silk in the milk that can be extracted. Silk goats.
Okay.
Yeah. More interestingly, pigs that glow green.
I've heard of those.
Light. Do you know why they glow green or how they got it to do it?
Not off the top of my head.
Jellyfish DNA injected into pig embryos.
Oh.
Nice.
There's also spinach pigs, where the genes from the spinach plants have been transferred into fertilized pig eggs to make them leaner and healthier to eat.
What?
Yeah.
People be doing too much.
Has science gone too far? My pigs taste like
Well,
spinach now.
It gets worse as I go on. This is the simplest to the most extreme stuff. So in 1970, there was a Dr. Robert J. White who performed the first successful head transplant when he sewed one monkey's head onto a different monkey's body, and it worked.
Yeah.
What do you mean it worked? How did he keep it alive?
Well, it could taste and it could see, but it was paralyzed from the head down because the spinal column wasn't properly attached. Couldn't be attached.
Ugh.
And then even...
My poor little Franken monkey.
And then 1954, so prior to what I just said, but there was a Dr. Vladimir Demikov who surgically made two-headed dogs. And the most successful pair of canines only lived 29 days, so there was a lot of dogs being... Yeah. It's not fun, but it is...
What are people
Interesting.
doing?
I don't know, dude.
What are people
Hey,
doing?
to lighten the mood, here you go, guys. Here's a fun fact. When Frankenberry cereal was introduced in 1971, it turned kids' poop pink because of the red dye, and parents freaked out.
Oh my god. Can't go an episode without poop being referenced.
I know.
What's funny is, this is like a little bit of a callback, but you mentioned the frogs with electricity.
Yeah.
With Galvin.
Mm-hmm.
That's how, in the original Frankenweenie, that's how the kid gets the plan to resurrect his dog, because he's in science class one day, and they're like, hey, so did you know if you take the electrodes to a frog and it starts kicking, the legs start kicking, but they're like, if you overjuice it and like the legs get too strong and they break the glass, then it's in. And that the kid's like, maybe I could do that to my dog, and he makes Frankenweenie.
Epic. Yeah, I'm excited, man. Frankenstein.
To watch the movies?
Honestly, because, alright, so I read the book
Yeah.
in high school, and it wasn't, like, my favorite. So that wasn't, like, the first Universal monster movies I watched. I watched, like, The Wolfman, Creature from the Black Lagoon, watched Dracula, and I was like, the Bela Lugosi Dracula is not my favorite version of Dracula. It kind of sucks. Sorry, I know he's an icon or whatever, but it's like,
I don't drink wine.
And so I was like kind of hesitant to watch Frankenstein, and I watched the first one, and I was like, yeah, it's okay. Then I watched the second one, mind blown. I was like, this is amazing. These are the best.
So good. Oh, and you know what's funny is one of the most popular pulp culture images of Dr. Frankenstein in the graveyard, he's not alone. He's got a little hunchback friend that he helps dig up the bodies. That's nowhere in the books. That's all from the Universal Monsters.
It is. Yeah.
And what's funny enough, in the very first Frankenstein, you'll find out, Jasmine, his little sidekick isn't a hunchback. He's a guy with like metal rickets on his legs, and then the hunchback doesn't show up until Ghost of Frankenstein, I think.
Really?
Or it's either Son or Ghost of Frankenstein, because then Bela Lugosi comes back as Igor, the hunchback man with a broken neck that they tried to hang for his crimes, and he hung, it just didn't kill him, so technically they had to let him go.
Actually, I had a question to ask you about, because there's a continuity in the Universal Monster movies.
Yes.
And so there's, after The Bride of Frankenstein, I guess the order you would watch it is, you'd watch The Bride of Frankenstein, then you would watch The Wolfman, and then Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. And then after that comes House of Frankenstein, in which they try to revive the monster, the Wolfman, and Dracula.
Yeah.
And then it's followed by House of Dracula, which is almost the exact same plot.
Same plot, just with a different... I think it's got John Carradine playing Dracula now.
Can you explain that? Like, what's going on?
It's so funny to think, like, the continuity... Like, there's a certain point where the continuity does make... They're working towards the continuity, and then they just say, I don't know. The monsters just show up. Because it's like Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, and then Son of Frankenstein is just like, Dr. Frankenstein gave up his science crimes and settled down, and he had a kid. And then the kid shows up and does the same exact thing that his father did, but it's in a different house that looks completely different than the one in the original Frankenstein. And then House of Frankenstein shows up, and that's just like in a whole other part of the world. I think there's like a swampy area too in there that like just shows up.
Yeah.
It like they get fast and loose. It's so funny.
Because I was reading about the Mummy continuity.
Oh man, the Mummy
And so-
continuity is so funny.
I forget which one it is, but one of them ends with the Mummy and his bride sinking into a swamp, but it's in Massachusetts. And then the next one starts with them being revived from supposedly the same swamp, but now it's in Louisiana.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
they don't explain why it's in two different states.
Yeah, and I think just the Mummy comes out of it. There's like no bride in that one. I think. It's,
Oh, really?
Yeah, like they're like, oh, we forgot. No, there's just the one. And it might even just be the hand of the Mummy, where the hand comes back and starts crawling around, starts choking people.
All right. Well, I think it's your turn, Alex.
Well, figure it's nearing the end of the episode. We can have a little more fun. It's Halloween, talking about some monsters, some myths, and the movies inspired by these monsters. So I figured I'd ask you guys a question. What's your favorite scary movie?
Oh my gosh. You know what? I'm literally so happy that you just asked this question because I have an answer and it's the other subject that I wanted to talk about for
okay.
today's episode. So that question is so perfect. I don't know if I would say it is my favorite though. But I would say, in my opinion, conceptually, it is the scariest. And I will tell you why. Do you guys want to take a guess at what it is though? If you didn't see my notes over my shoulder yet.
Did not see the
Is
notes.
it not The Mummy?
The Mummy is not the scariest movie, in my opinion, no.
Is it Poltergeist?
No, but that one did really get me as a kid. That one
Ooh.
stuck with me.
I'm trying to think of like what horror movies you've seen.
Rosemary's Baby.
No. You've guessed 3 times. Give Alex a try.
I'll say something new. Maybe Hereditary.
I actually haven't seen that.
Oh, okay, that's what I was.
I'll give you a hint. It's from the 80s.
Is it The Thing?
No.
Oh, okay.
Werewolf Cop.
No. What? What?
Werewolf Cop.
I'll just tell you. So it is A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh.
Interesting.
Yeah. Killing people through their dreams? Are you kidding me? That's whack
I haven't
and
seen it.
terrifying. Well, it's gonna be spoiled for you, kind of.
Bummer.
But you know that's what Freddy Krueger does, right?
No, I
Well,
have
shit.
no idea.
Well, spoilers for a film franchise that's like 30 plus years old.
But yeah, that movie terrifies me. But before I get into why, do you guys want to take a wild guess about where this movie takes place?
Ohio.
Yes.
Is it in Ohio?
It's in Springwood, the fictional town, Ohio.
No.
I swear.
It always blows my mind because, like, you were talking about earlier how 2 to 3 years ago you had no idea what Last of Us was.
Yeah.
Cut to today where you're like, you've seen the show, you know about the lore, you know about the Pedro Pascal. So it's funny because to me it's like, oh, I've known about Ohio. I've had the Haunted Ohio books for these years, but like I don't really have any context of Ohio until I met Jasmine, and then it started forming, and now it's like, wait, you mean Nightmare on Elm Street's in Ohio?
It is, and unfortunately, some of this is going to get spoiled for you in the conversation.
Bummer.
I'll try to like not spoil it too much.
Well,
Here's what I'll do. I'm going to just not talk about the plot. I had some plot points, but I'll leave that out so that you can enjoy it. I won't
Yeah.
spoil anything
And there's a
about.
difference between having something spoiled and then being able to watch it too, because
Yeah.
the Nightmare, at least the first one, is a different kind of a beast of a movie.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I won't spoil any plot points, but I can still talk about it because I will say I was going to re-watch it before this episode. I didn't because I went online and watched a couple clips and it disturbed me too much that I didn't actually want to watch the film again.
Really?
So this is why I consider it one of the scariest movies.
I just put it on our list.
I will watch it again
'Cause
if
I
you
haven't
want
seen
to.
it. I'm
Ooh.
ready for this.
I'll watch it. But
And then we can follow it up with Cannibal Holocaust.
Oh, yeah.
goodness. Anyways, so I'm not going to spoil any plot points.
A little palate cleanser with Man Bite Dog.
Oh, goodness, dude. Sorry.
But since I've already spoiled the fact that he kills people through their dreams, that is going to allow me to talk about some of the real life inspiration for this movie that
yeah.
really happened. Do you know about this?
It's real. It really Freddy Krueger's a real guy. He's not
Oh, boy.
No, Freddy Krueger's not real, but sudden unexplained death syndrome is. Sudden unexplained nocturnal death syndrome is real. So
It's not unexplained. It's El Silbon counting his dad's bones.
1, 2, 3.
well, So the film was inspired by several newspaper articles that were printed in the Los Angeles Times in the 70s and 80s about Hmong refugees who, after fleeing the United States because of war and genocide in Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam, were suffering disturbing nightmares and refusing to sleep. Some of the men died in their sleep soon after. Condition was called sudden unexplained death syndrome. Later, the word nocturnal was in there as well. This took the lives of 117 people.
Mm-hmm.
And so the mysterious deaths were usually among young men in their 20s and 30s, all who were considered to be in good health. There was nothing, quote, wrong with them when they passed away. But one study did suggest that the power of traditional belief in Da Cho, which is the nocturnal pressing spirit or the nightmare spirit, compounded by such factors as the trauma of war, migration, rapid acculturation, and the inability to practice their traditional healing and rituals, can cause cataclysmic psychological stress. So, a little bit more information about Da Cho, which is my terrible American pronunciation of this Hmong word. But this is something that's experienced during sleep paralysis. It's because sleep paralysis is believed to be caused in this culture by this nocturnal pressing spirit who attacks sleepers by sitting on their chests, sometimes attempting to strangle them. So this fatal ailment has been investigated by the Center for Disease Control at length. However, it's still unexplained. All of those people who passed away in the 70s and 80s from this refugee time period, unexplained. And Wes Craven took that information and was like, yeah, let's make a murderer out of this.
Wow.
Yeah. There's a documentary I saw years ago about the Nightmare on Elm Street movies where they interview all the people who made them, some film historians, some people who know myths and legends. And yeah, there was one story where I remember Wes Craven talking about how there was like a guy who was like 18, 19 maybe, and he was with his family, and he was just having terrible nightmares. Like, so he refused to sleep. And so they ended up getting him some sleeping pills, and it seemed like everything was going well. Then one day they found him dead in his bed, and he was clutching the blanket. And they found in one of his drawers all the sleeping pills they'd given him, like he'd not taken them at all. And then they looked underneath, and they found like 3 coffee pots.
So he was staying awake.
He was like staying awake, hidden from his family, drinking coffee constantly. Oh,
Wow.
I'll take the pill, and he would just hide it and throw it in the drawer. So like they found like 3 different coffee pots hidden in his room, and like he was keeping himself awake, and they found him dead after weeks of him saying, "I can't sleep. I don't want to sleep. I can't. If I fall asleep, I die."
Yeah,
Whoa.
and
Well, just to share real quick, that will kill you. Not the not sleeping part, but drinking too much caffeine.
Yeah.
Because I was reading about Citizen Kane, directed by Orson Welles, and Orson Welles apparently got caffeine poisoning on set because he would not eat for like 3 to 4 days, and then when he did eat, he would eat like 2 pounds of just solid red meat.
Oh God.
And then just drink coffee in between. He ended up getting caffeine poisoning.
Yeah.
So,
Jeez.
yeah.
It's a different diet back then, dude.
well, the reason that this whole concept is so actually terrifying to me is because I have a very complicated relationship with sleep and dreaming. I have very vivid dreams, most of the time lucid. I'm aware that I'm dreaming, and it could be terrifying. So just as an example, here's one of the dreams I had. So I had a dream. It gets crazy towards the end, but there's a lot of like setup. So I had a dream that I woke up from sleeping in my house in Ohio. I woke up in my house and I went out to the kitchen and I was confused. And my mom was in the kitchen. And so I said, I'm pretty sure I'm supposed to go to work today. What month is it? Because in real time, at the time I had this dream, I'm living in California. I know I have to get up and go to work in the morning. So when I woke up in this dream, I was confused because I was like, I thought I was in California. What month is it? Am I dreaming now? Was I dreaming that I was in California? Like, what's going on? I'm confused. So this was one of those moments where like it wasn't really a lucid dream. It was, but it wasn't, because I was trying to figure out, am I dreaming or not? And so I say, like, am I supposed to go to work today? And my mom's response was, I'm your mom. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? And so, there's all these signs that I should have known I was dreaming because, for one, waking up in my house in Ohio already didn't make sense because I live in California and I'm not on vacation. But also, I woke up in my childhood bedroom, which does not exist anymore. The room has been remodeled since I've moved out. And so I should have known right away that I was dreaming. But I went back to my bedroom and I was just really confused because I was like, Mom's acting weird. I'm pretty sure I'm supposed to be in California right now. I don't know what's going on. And then my dad came in the room and gave me a cream soda, which was also random and weird. And so now I'm just like, what is happening?
Was it good?
I don't remember.
Does your dad drink cream soda normally? Or?
He did at a time. So he went through a phase where he was drinking cream soda instead of like a regular cola.
Oh, okay.
But I don't believe he's in that phase anymore. He
Man,
could be.
culture.
I'll ask him. But so I went back to my bedroom and I'm sitting there trying to figure out if I am awake or not. And what gave it away that I was surely asleep and dreaming was one of my dogs who has passed away walked into the room. And I said out loud, okay, well, that dog's dead, so I must be dreaming. So then I attempted to wake myself up, and I have a process for this. If I'm dreaming and I know I'm dreaming and I want to wake up, I will bang my head against something.
What the heck? See, how do people have such complex dream lives? Like, for me, when I have a dream, it's like, dude, this is weird. None of this makes any sense. And then I wake up and I'm like, oh, that was a weird dream.
Must be nice.
Yeah.
But everyone's got like this, they're like, I need to wake myself up from this dream so I can bang my head against the wall.
I'm amazed because my process is for most of my life is it's like, oh, it's bedtime. I lay down, close my eyes, and then there's just darkness, and I wake up in the morning and just like, I don't know if. And I hear other people, oh, I had dreams. Like, what is a dream?
That sounds
like, I do not get if
so
I do
wonderful.
have dreams, I don't remember them. And the ones I do, they're very just like, I'm sitting there watching a movie of like, oh, I'm walking through my house, but everything is hazy. And oh, somebody I haven't seen in years walks by. But I can't actively in that moment be like, this is a dream. I'm more like, I'm like on a ride watching it happen. And I wake up in the real world like, oh, that was a weird hazy dream.
I wish I could just conk out everything be black and then wake up later, but no. So in this dream,
crazy.
well, I will clarify. So when I am dreaming and I bang my head against something, I don't feel anything. However, I do feel pain in my dreams. So if someone else inflicts pain on me in my dream, I feel it.
What in the world is going on?
Which is why Nightmare on Elm Street is so scary. For those of you who've seen it, you know what I'm referencing. So when I am intentionally banging my head against something in a dream to wake myself up, I don't feel any pain. It's more just so like my head stops against whatever it is I'm banging it. And it usually works. It only takes a couple hits for me to wake up, and then I wake up.
Damn.
But listen, in this dream, I was banging my head against the window, and I wasn't waking up.
I hate this already.
I, for real, genuinely thought I was dead because I couldn't wake up. And I started crying in my dream because I was like, oh my God, I'm dead. I'm not going to wake up. I can't wake up. And I was crying. And then I woke up, but...
You know, I guess it turns out heaven is real, and it's Jasmine's house in Ohio.
Yeah, I guess so.
That's what that looks
everything
like.
leads back to Ohio. So just for context, those are the types of dreams I have. So that is why something like A Nightmare on Elm Street is so genuinely terrifying for me.
That's
now,
fascinating.
it is fascinating, and it does open up conversation for another topic that I do not want to go too deep into right now, but I will just mention for the pure interest of it. I have had people tell me that because of my ability to lucid dream and have such vivid nightmares and things like that, people have suggested that I may have some sort of psychic ability that I'm not fully tapped into.
Oh.
And I'm like, I don't want it. I don't want it. Take it away. I do not want it. So, but...
It's a gift you didn't ask for, but it's a gift you can use.
Well, no, because it goes into those... Well, here's another... I'll give you one more dream. Because, again, I could talk about this for hours. We could do a whole episode on it if you wanted.
On
but
Jasmine's dreams.
Yeah.
But- there's also the idea that your dreams are you visiting other, like,
Dimensions.
realities, other dimensions, other timelines, whatever.
Jasmine, are you an interdimensional window hopper?
Window faller.
Faller,
Yeah.
Whoa,
No,
I like
am.
Hopper, though.
Yeah.
Now we're hopping through the window.
I'm time slipping. I had a dream. A bunch of stuff was happening. I'm not going to go through all the irrelevant details, but I was in front of my mom, and my mom said, "I'm not the mom you know, but I hope I see you again soon." And I was like, "What?" And so then I asked her, I was like, "What are you saying? Like, are you telling me that there's different dimensions? Are there other realities?" And she didn't answer me, and I suddenly got pulled back, and like
Doctor Strange?
Yeah, something like that.
What?
Yeah, and then I woke up. So, I will say this, there have been nights where I've attempted to harness the power of my dreams and have a positive experience, but I have not yet been able to succeed in doing so. I don't, because, people who lucid dream, they're like, well, you can take control of your dream. Like, you can make things happen in your dream. I haven't gained that skill yet. The most lucid I am is knowing I'm dreaming and then trying to wake myself up and then also having conversations with the characters in my dreams like I did with my mom. But
Well, next time you realize you're dreaming, just start to try to control it.
easier said than done.
I mean,
Easier
hey,
said
I've
than
never had a lucid dream, so
Yeah.
I've had dreams that I believe are prophetic,
Mm-hmm.
that predict the future. But those are usually very specific types of dreams, and I always know what they are.
Yeah.
They're always, like, super vivid, too. Like, I always remember those ones. But then there's, like, the regular dreams that I have that are just, like, random stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes I've had a couple of dreams. Back when I was living in LA, I was having dreams of, like, entities in the house and stuff.
Oh, gross.
And that all stopped. I don't know if I've shared this. Because I've shared the story on the podcast of me seeing ghosts and stuff at that house. And maybe I talked about some of the recurring dreams I was having. But basically, I moved back home during the pandemic. And then we ended up selling that house in early 2021. And then it was destroyed, and they're building an apartment complex where it was. And I really wish I knew when I had the dream, and I wish I knew the date that place was destroyed, because the dream I had was that I was outside in the backyard looking into the house, and there was this feeling that there was something there, like specifically a woman wanted me to come back and help them, like they needed my help. And then in my dream, I was like, nah, dude, you're crazy, because I was still, like, cognizant and aware of the memories I was having of specifically a woman at that house, and the fact that I was not welcome there by whatever that was. And so I was like, no, I'm not going to help you. And then I haven't had a single dream about it since, and that house is destroyed now. And
Wow.
I wonder if it was, like, the same day or the night before,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Alex, I know you said you don't really have many dreams. Have you ever died in your dream?
No, stop.
Okay. Well,
Wait, no, you keep going.
It's a valid question because that's,
I've
I've already spoiled it. Freddy Krueger murders people from their dreams.
I know that. He's a murderer.
Right. So that's, again, why it's so scary for me, because I've died in my dreams, but when I die in my dreams, I wake up.
Whoa.
I did
I've
too.
been murdered, I've fallen off cliffs, all this other stuff.
The one.
And that's when people say, oh, that's your past lives you're reliving.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my god, I don't want any of this. I just want to sleep. I just want to
Oh,
rest.
geez. I wonder then, because I had one dream where I died, and it was when I was a kid, and I was on top of a skyscraper, and I remember everything was red around me. The whole world was red. The only thing real was the skyscraper. And I was on top and, like, hanging out by the pool with my brother and my sister. And I remember I had decided to hang off, like, with my legs, kind of like picture a kid on the monkey bars where they're hanging
Oh, yeah.
with their legs
upside
unhooked.
down.
Yeah, and so I was doing that off of the railing, hanging over the edge. And I was like, hey guys, look. And I remember my brother comes up and he
No.
lifts my legs, and so I fell.
Joey murdered you?
Yeah, well, see, it's weird because I don't know if it was Joey. It was my brother, but
It could have been a different life, brother.
maybe. And
Yeah.
so I just remember, like, falling, and I was like, man, I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
And then I hit the ground and woke up.
Yeah. That's how that goes.
That was the only time.
The only dream I can think of, because, man, I'm telling you, I listen to people and they say, oh, I have weird dreams, or I experience, I'm like, wow, this is crazy. I literally fall asleep and I wake up And it seems like it's been like an hour, and it's like, oh, it's been 8 hours, and you're still like, oh fuck, I'm still tired. But the one dream I've had a few times in my life is I'm like running, and I'm just running, and I'm running fast, and I'm like in the middle of like a desert, but it's at night, and it's just an empty desert with just a mountain range, 360 all around. I'm just running, I'm booking it, and I'm feeling like I'm strong. Oh my god, I'm like fast, and I'm running, and I can do it. Because one thing in my dreams is I can't run. I like whenever I have a dream where there's something dangerous, I just can't move. I'm like physically stuck in my dream where I can't run or move. So in this dream, I'm running and I'm going, and then the ground starts to crack and then an earthquake hits, and it just everything falls apart, and I'm just like falling in this chasm. I'm like, and then I wake up. What the heck?
Yeah.
Interesting.
But this is still on topic, but a little bit of a shift, because this is Moon Knight was actually scary for me. The first episode of Moon Knight, Marvel's series, because the trailer freaked me out too, because the trailer for Moon Knight is all about him not being able to tell if he's dreaming or not. He can't decipher the difference between his waking life and his sleeping life. And being someone who can lucid dream and most often knows when I'm dreaming, as I already explained that previous dream, it's terrifying to not know if you're dreaming or not. I cried during the first episode of Moon Knight. It was a lot.
That's crazy. Wow.
Yeah. But that's my answer for scariest movie, Nightmare on Elm Street. And it's, again, conceptually. I wouldn't necessarily say, like, the imagery of Nightmare on Elm Street or anything like that is the scariest to me. It's gross at some points, but, like, the idea of this being how you can meet your demise is absolutely terrifying to me.
Yeah. That's intense.
So to answer the question then, Alex, is my favorite scary movie is, I'd probably say the one that scared me the most, like, in a psychological type of way, is Hereditary.
No spoilers.
No. Well, for anyone who's seen... No, because...
Spoil it for me. I spoiled it for you.
No.
But let's not get ahead of ourselves. No spoiler.
Yeah, you'll catch that reference. But I think just the fact that I have a sibling, or I have two siblings, and it's like, the fact that it preyed on, like, a family falling apart, it's that type of thing that, like, Stephen King does so well, where there's, like, a monster, or there's something on the outside, a demonic force or something, but it's also the horror of everyday life, and it's, like, parents going through a divorce, or a loved one dying, that is horror in and of itself, and especially if you paint it in the right light in a movie, it's, like, really... this is the worst thing that could ever happen, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that was really well done. That's my answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, yeah, that movie hit hard.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Especially the part where the mother's crying at the funeral, and it's just, like, such a...
Dude, that lady was going for it.
I know. Just, like, those professional wailers, man, that she must be descended from them.
Yeah.
Well, for people who don't know what I'm talking about, people used to hire professional wailers to wail at the funerals. And that actress, who is that actress?
Toni Collette?
Yeah. She was really wailing, and it was like, man, that's...
It's so funny, too, because I'd read an interview with her where she was just coming off, I think she was on, like, a TV show. She was on some long-running something that was, like, exhausting. Before Hereditary, she had, like, either finished, like, a TV show, maybe Broadway or something, because she's, like, been in a bunch of stuff. She's everywhere. But she had said, like, she's like, oh, I was just tired, and I was exhausted. I was looking for something that was a nice come-down role. And then she got to Hereditary, where it's, like, the most, like, vicious, like, emotionally draining role I've ever seen in a movie.
Yeah.
But she gave it, man. She's freaking good in that. Dude, Hereditary, go watch it. It's good.
Yeah. Much better than the director's follow-up, Midsummer.
Oh.
I'm not a fan of it.
Yeah, you know what? I'll say this for myself, because I've seen them both. You've seen them too, so we can have a little conversation. I went into Hereditary completely blind of... Who did, is it?
Ari Aster.
Yeah. I don't know who that guy was. I didn't know the name. It
Yeah.
meant nothing to me. It's like, oh, I want to see Hereditary. This sounds kind of cool. Went into it, was, like, blown away by, like, how vicious it was, how horrific it was. But here's the thing. I was like, all right, Midsummer's coming out. Let me go see it. I think I see this guy's bag of tricks. I think I've seen his whole bag of tricks because it's just a recycling of all the stuff that was in Hereditary, just, kind of replated for Midsummer.
And then twice as long.
Twice as weird.
Yeah, it's like, okay.
It's like, I know, I see, So I don't want to be derogatory because there's people who love that movie, and I get it. But if you've seen one of his movies, chances are his other movies are going to be more or less in the same realm of shock.
Yeah.
I should say. But yeah, so we had Nightmare on Elm Street. Really crazy. It's crazy talking to someone who dreams too, because your interpretation of dream media versus how I see it, because I don't have dreams. I'm always like, oh man, I like stuff where I can't tell if it's a dream or not. But if you've lived it, I'm sure that's horrific. Yeah. So thank you for sharing that. That was intense. Hereditary, good movie, good spooky movie, heavy hitter of a movie. Maybe do a double pairing with the remake of Suspiria too. Oh yeah. If you want to do for the double trouble.
I prefer the original Suspiria.
Yeah, I like the weird vibe of it. It's more like a fun house gone wrong.
Yeah. Have you ever seen Suspiria, Jeff? You might like it.
It's cool. It's weird. The soundtrack is killer.
Oh yeah, done by a band named Goblin.
Okay.
Yeah, they live up to their name too.
Because what is it? It's a girl who goes to a ballerina school.
In Germany.
She's an American. And
Americano.
There's like weird stuff. I'll just say there's weird stuff.
And then she realizes just how weird Germany is.
Yeah, sure.
So what's yours?
My favorite scary movie. This is one that I've mentioned to other people in my lives, and chances are a lot of people haven't seen it. But I highly recommend it. It's by one of my favorite directors, John Carpenter. John Carpenter, he's done The Thing, Escape from New York, a whole list of movies. One of my favorites is from like 1987. It's called Prince of Darkness.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
Oh, it's good. I highly recommend it. Prince of Darkness, it's a very simple premise of, it's a group of, I want to say they're like they're not really paranormal investigators, but they have the equipment. And they're trying to they're researchers. They're a research team that find an old abandoned church, I think in downtown LA. It's like an old church that's abandoned. A preacher finds this vial down in the basement of green ooze. And they don't know what it is. They're trying to investigate. They're trying to figure out why does this church have this green ooze? And there's a chance that it could be the devil himself trapped in this church. But not the devil that we know of, the horns with the pitchfork, pure evil trapped in this church. And they're trying to investigate and figure out what it is, how it got there, why. As things around the church start being affected more and more. The weather starts... There's a really good atmosphere. It gets grim. It gets barren. And there's, a small encampment of homeless people around this church because it's almost like in Skid Row. It's that kind of area where it's... And then all the homeless people start becoming more weird, and they start becoming more surrounding the church constantly, and they have to get through them. And the leader is played by Alice Cooper of all people.
Weird.
You know
and
what?
Donald Pleasance is in it as the preacher who finds them.
I have a feeling this movie might have crossed my eyes at some point because my dad is an Alice Cooper fan, so he's probably seen this. It's probably been on the TV at home before, but I do not remember it distinctly.
I highly recommend it. It's horror that goes wrong in ways that you don't expect it to. It's a very very cool, very weird atmospheric movie. And I think it's perfect for Halloween. Because it has this really good kind of spooky vibe. It's got a good cast, and it gets weird in a way that's we all know A24 movies, talking about Hereditary, talking about Midsommar, elevated horror, we'll call it, fancy pants or horror. Yeah. This is John Carpenter doing what I like to think of as elevated horror that doesn't have the pretension to it.
All right.
It's good. It's real good. So, and that's one of those movies that I recommend it because I think we've all kind of shared that favorite horror movies are ones that have unnerved us in some way.
Yeah.
Dreams, family loss, family dynamic. And with this one, it's just that sense of things aren't right in the world, and we're not gonna understand it fully, but you get to see a glimpse of maybe where the idea of good and evil comes from. In a waxen poetic kind of way.
Oh yeah, no, I mean all the good I would not include the movies in this list, but one of my favorite horror stories is It, Stephen King book.
Yeah.
It's specifically the book, because the movies never touch on some of the really heavy themes that the book touches on, you know? Like, I know everyone, they always split the movies up as the kids and the adults, but in the book it starts off with the adults and flashes back to the kids as they're remembering.
Yeah.
And that's part of the horror of it, is that they survived something so crazy like that.
Traumatic.
But they don't remember.
They don't remember it at all.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a frustrating thing, too, of when they adapt it. They're like, hey, so here's the kids. They're going around. They're having their adventures. They're fighting Pennywise. And you're like, oh, this is great. They're, you know, because they're bonding and they're forming relationships. And then hard cut to 30 years later, the adults come back. And they're like, hey, who are you? I kind of remember you. What's going on? What's this play? And they're dumb and they don't know anything.
Yeah, it works better when you start off with the adults.
And then go back to the kids and then like,
Yeah.
oh, now I know who these characters are. And now the danger is even real.
Because I always felt like the way the book's set up, too, is perfect for make it a mini-series. Because the book is essentially split up into... Each chapter is from one person's perspective. And there's like 7 kids. It's like, there's a 8 episode miniseries right there. And then that's how you do it. You know? Like, just like the book is. But they just want to keep... It's the typical Hollywood producers like, oh, this book's 1,000 pages long. We'll just split it right in half. And then the writer goes, well, you can't really just split this book in half. There's... Kids, people like kids. Make it about kids, and it's like, okay.
Hey, get that guy in here with the vision everyone loves.
Yeah.
He can do it.
Angers me, but anyways.
Yeah. Ooh, and then I'll throw out one last recommendation for a good new movie that was a newish movie that I would recommend. I think Jasmine's seen it. Don't know you, but Eli. It deals kind of like with cryptids too a little bit. A little movie we like to call Nope.
Oh,
I
yeah.
have not seen it.
Oh, man. Add that to the list if you want to see what I consider probably the best example of a modern day horror movie that has fun with its setup and then changes its setup as it evolves in the movie.
Interesting. Okay.
I highly recommend Nope. That movie, very good.
And to tie everything back, I was on the set of Nope at
Yeah.
Universal.
Yeah.
Oh, they have the thing, right? Yeah.
There's the Nope set, and then when you do the Terror Tram for Horror Nights, you can walk through it. I'm pretty sure that if you take the regular studio tour, they probably drive through it.
That was probably like a
but
little
with
part.
Horror Nights, you get out and you walk through it.
Oh, that's sick. Yeah, now that you've been on the set, go watch the movie.
Yeah, I know.
It's good. It's so good.
They had the people from Us, the Tethered, as they're called.
Oh, yeah.
Running around with scissors trying to scare you.
Oh,
Yeah, they got me like 4 times.
they were
They
pretty
did.
scary.
Awesome.
They were pretty unnerving.
It was pretty cool.
Before we leave, I did want to just kind of throw this out there. So this episode is coming out just a few days before October 29th. And October 29th on the Small Town Monsters YouTube channel is the next episode of my series Mysteries and Monsters, which is about werewolves this time.
Ooh.
Yeah, and I'm really stoked and really happy with how it turned out because it's a little different from all the other episodes in my series, a little more scary.
Ooh, with a capital W.
Yeah. But yeah, it's pretty cool. I think it's also a unique take on the whole dogman werewolf thing that hasn't really been discussed before. The way I think about these things is like straight up, I think they're werewolves, like people shapeshifting. And I go to great lengths to try to justify that with as much evidence as I could find.
Whoa.
And I don't think I've ever seen that before. So it's pretty cool. Some cool people show up in it too. So
Hell yeah, that sounds awesome.
yeah. In fact, almost everyone that shows up in it has been on the podcast.
Really?
Sicko.
Wait, yeah, let's list.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
have Carrick that shows up. We have Nash Hoover who shows up.
Okay.
Doug Hychek shows up. Tobias Wayland, Emily Wayland, Adam Benedict, and then the final person that's interviewed is Linda Godfrey, who is not on the podcast. And unfortunately, she will never be because she passed away last year.
R.I.P.
R.I.P. But
Well, I'm very happy with our conversations today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Had a good ass episode.
Good spooky times,
Yeah.
spooky topics.
I did want to go ahead and just list a couple sources. I didn't use a ton. This wasn't a super research heavy episode, but I did find a couple things. So for my Frankenstein sources, as I mentioned already, I read through Monstrous, The Lore, Gore, and Science Behind Your Favorite Monsters by Carlin Betcha, who was on our podcast.
Oh, yeah.
I looked at the Royal Society, Discover Magazine, Technovation, Project Muse, Lit2Go, Smithsonian Libraries, and Oxford Academic. And then I have even less sources for my Nightmare on Elm Street conversation. I did look up a couple things. So I referenced Hmong American Experience, the History Channel, Looper, Swarthmore College, and then I listened to a podcast that was actually really interesting. It's called Hmongish. Yeah, it's some Hmong Americans who talk about their culture and things like that. And they did an episode where they talked about Dacho, which is the nightmare spirit that I was mentioning earlier. So that was kind of fun.
Cool.
Yep. So that's what I got there.
Heck yeah.
I do have like 4 sources.
Which,
Got Wikipedia. Didn't dip into the cryptids wiki.
I know. Oh my gosh, we went one episode without the Cryptids wiki.
And then there's also lessvampires.org, texasstandard.org, and scarymommy.com.
Scary Mommy.
Scary mommy.
Oh my
I'm pretty
goodness.
sure we referenced scarymommy.com.
Yeah.
That's got to be just a mother who likes horror and stuff.
It was like a blog,
Yeah.
and I didn't really use it, but I was like,
We gotta shout it out.
Yeah.
the name is hilarious. So.
You know, get ready for the new faces of terror that are Siren Head, Slender Man, and Scary Mommy.
Yep.
That was awesome. Should we do our sign off
Yeah,
now?
yeah. Happy Halloween, guys.
Happy Halloween. I'm Alex Daikaiju. You can find me on social media, mostly the Instagram, at Alex Daikaiju, Alex, Daikaiju. This whole month of October, I've been doing a drawing a day, a little bit of a drawing prompt challenge. Pick a character, have a drawing a day. Some of them are scary, some of them are funny. And then this October 31st, Halloween night, I'd like to officially announce the Alex Daikaiju Patreon.
Whoa.
I
Yes.
was trying not to be too loud, but I'm very excited.
Oh, that was
Okay.
very, very well. I got the Patreon. I'm going to get it all set up. I'll be serializing the newest comic, Godzilla vs. Clifford Inferno.
Nice.
Yo.
Follow up to the long-running series. Also, we'll have all my other comics on there for reading, too. Be a nice, concise place where all my comics will be collected because they've been published in various books across the various lands. So if you want to read more of my comics, read the newest edition of Godzilla vs. Clifford, Alex Daikaiju, patreon.com. Be there or be square.
Amazing.
Sick.
Tell the people, Jasmine.
You can find me on Instagram, Jasmine Maywith, JasmineMaewith. That's about really where I'm at right now. I do have a Twitter, it's the same name, but I use Instagram more often. And I'm going to plug the Cryptid Campfire YouTube channel, so y'all go watch that vlog.
Yeah.
Horror Nights vlog.
Comment on your favorite scary movie on the vlog, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. Good, because no one's commented on it.
Come on.
Well, we also haven't posted it on our social media yet, so
I guess.
cut people a little slack.
Come on, you chuckleheads. Get out there.
Chuckleheads. Anyways, yeah, you can follow me at the Eli Watson. That's on Instagram. That's where I'm most active. Follow Cryptid Campfire at Cryptid Campfire on Instagram, Facebook, and we're on Twitter, but we don't tweet. So
No twits for us.
We're on X, you mean?
we're on X. Yeah.
It's Twitter. Everyone calls it Twitter. It's gonna forever be Twitter.
Twitter.
Sorry, Elon.
Yeah.
It's
We're
Twitter.
also not hopping over to Threads because it's the same thing.
Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah, we're not gonna hop over to Threads and just not post there either. So
Yeah, I know, right?
So we'll just save ourselves the trouble.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. We had fun. We'll see you next month.
For something even spookier. Woo!
Yeah. Bye.